denizens of the night. Welcome to another episode of the macabre, the terrifying. Broadcasting live from deep inside a gloomy forest, I will be your guide through the witching hours. Tonight, we'll hear several short stories from Blair Daniels. In our first story, a husband and wife are playing hide and seek with their kids. But try as he might, our unfortunate husband just can't seem to find his wife. In our second story, a hiker stumbles upon a body in the forest, and there's something very familiar about it. And to round out the evening, a CAPTCHA image reveals a horrifying event that transpired in the woods. Without further ado, this story is called My Wife and I Have Been Playing Hide and Seek for 3 Days Straight, and was written by Blair Daniels. I don't know what to do. In the past 72 hours, my life has been turned upside down. Our family has been thrown into chaos. My wife is missing, and I fear she'll never return. Let me start from the beginning. My wife and I started playing hide and seek with our 2 young kids. However, they're a little too young to hide effectively. They always hide in the same spot every time. So we found it's more fun for one of us parents to hide and then the rest of us seek. I've hidden from my wife and kids just by standing completely still in the corner of a dark room. It's amazing how our brains are programmed to see things that move. My wife gets a little more creative, but it's hard for us to do anything too elaborate because the kids are not very cooperative in waiting for us to hide. On Tuesday evening after work, we decided to play. My wife decided to hide first. I counted down from 10 with the kids holed up in the downstairs office. "Ready or not, here I come!" The kids bounded out of the room like wild dogs. I followed, slowly, trying to get a sense of where my wife was hiding. I'd often try to figure out what room she was hiding in first, to gently guide the kids so that we wouldn't find her too soon or spend too long looking for her. I saw her when I entered the living room. She was crouched behind the couch. I could see a bit of her elbow poking out from behind the upholstery. The kids walked right past her, too intent on checking the kitchen. I waited for them to return. As they walked back in and rounded the couch, I waited for them to squeal in delight. Except they didn't. Confused, I approached the couch. She wasn't there. Maybe I'd just seen a tag or something poking out. Or maybe she'd moved her hiding spot. Wouldn't be the first time. As I said, she's more creative at this than I am. So we moved on. We checked all the usual spots. Underneath the shelving in the garage, behind the kitchen door, even in the lower kitchen cabinets. She wasn't in any of those spots. Maybe she went upstairs. I hadn't heard her go upstairs, but she can creep pretty quietly. I walked along the hallways, the kids in tow. "Jessie," I called in a sing-song voice. "We're gonna find you." Gotcha! Our bedroom door was open, and there was a long, Jess-shaped lump under the covers. "Let's check Mom and Dad's bedroom," I said to the kids. Pattering footsteps as they charged behind me. I reached for the light switch, flicked on the lights, then grabbed the hem of the comforter and yanked it off. My heart dropped. The bed was empty. I stared down in confusion. It must have just been bunched up weirdly, but I could have sworn it looked like a person under there. the rough shape of someone in the fetal position, legs bent, back curved. I backed out of the room. The kids and I went downstairs. "Jess?" I called out. "We can't find you. Come on out." Nothing. The kids lost interest. They bounded into the family room and began playing with their cars. I was about to call out to her again when I noticed the chain of the basement door lock was disengaged. Aha! As I approached, my heart hammered in my chest. I knew she was waiting on the other side, waiting to jump out at me and give me a heart attack. She'd done that before. I took a deep breath and swung open the door. She wasn't there. Damp air wafted up from the basement. I clicked on the light. "Jess?" I called out. No answer. "The kids aren't playing anymore," I called down. "And you shouldn't be hiding down there anyway. These stairs are too dangerous." Nothing. I turned, about to close the door, but then something caught my eye. Black hair, poking through the gap between the stairs, about halfway down. She's hiding under the stairs. I stepped down. The wood creaked under my weight. The hair glistened below me in the dim yellow light. I continued down the steps, avoiding stepping on her hair, until I was standing on the concrete floor. I whirled around. Aha! But the space under the stairs was empty. My blood ran cold. "Jess, this isn't funny," I shouted. "Stop playing games with me." A footstep sounded behind me. I whirled around. The naked bulb in the ceiling only lit half the basement. The other half, where we had rows and rows of storage boxes, was in near total darkness. But I squinted, trying to make it out. In the murky darkness, behind a stack of boxes in the corner, I thought I could see her standing there. I could only see her in my peripheral vision, like how you can only see dim stars when you're not looking right at them because of how your optic cells are arranged. I focused on one of the storage boxes, really stared at it, and when I did, I realized I could see her pale calves extending up into the darkness. And as I stood there, I realized I could hear her breathing. I can see you there," I said, my voice wavering. "Why are you being so weird? The kids aren't even playing anymore, so come out. Please?" Deep in the pit of my stomach, I knew there was something wrong, something horribly wrong. So I chickened out. "I'm going upstairs. You can join me when you're ready." I headed for the stairs, but halfway there, the bulb flickered and went out. Total darkness surrounded me. I stretched my hands out, blindly groping into the darkness. They only fell on air. I frantically pawed through the air, searching for something, anything, and my fingers caught in something. Hair. I screamed and yanked my hands back. Then I ran blindly into the darkness, but something glanced off me. I shoved at it. I heard a dull thwack, and then I kept running. The side of the banister caught me straight in the chest. Panting, I felt my way to the stairs and climbed them as fast as I could. Then I locked the door to the basement and frantically ran to my kids. They were fine, but as I hugged them, I couldn't get the horrible thought out of my mind. The hair I'd felt, it was higher than my eye level, about 6.5 feet off the ground. Jess is only 5'2". The police searched the entire house. My wife isn't here. They searched the backyard and patrolled in a 3-mile radius. They came up empty-handed, It's like she disappeared off the face of the earth. Except last night, as I rolled over in bed, I swear my fingers touched something warm. That last line freaks me out a little. Hopefully it's just the dog or one of the kids sliding into bed, and not that nasty old hairy giant living in the basement. It seems to me that our husband here has two issues to deal with. One, the fact that his wife has disappeared and is only showing up in his peripheral vision. And two, a previously undisclosed hulking monster in the basement. Do you think you can get in any legal trouble if you fail to inform the person who buys your home about its hauntings and monsters? In this economy, you could probably still sell it for more than it's worth. Now, let's fade out of that scene and fade in slowly on a secluded forest trail, where our next story, called I Found a Body in the Woods, but There's Something Wrong with It, picks up. I've never been that active, but recently, after a health scare, I've decided to get in shape. The gym is boring, so I've started running down trails in the woods. Narrow paths winding next to babbling brooks, birds chirping in the trees, the smell of dirt and fresh air. It's exhilarating. But today, that all came to an end. I was taking a jog down a new path I hadn't been down before. As I came around the bend, my toe caught on something. I flew through the air and fell into the dirt, my hands flying out in front of me a second before I hit the ground. Pain shot up my elbows and knees. Wincing, I slowly pulled myself up. And there it was, the thing that I'd tripped on. A piece of clothing. I stepped forward, my heart pounding in my chest. It was a denim jacket, twisted and rolled on itself, the indigo blue now a muddy brown as it was slowly reclaimed by nature. It wasn't the weirdest thing I'd found in the woods by far. I'd seen beer bottles, crumpled paper, even an old baseball cap. I straightened, glancing around the forest, and something else caught my eye. Just several yards off the trail, there was something white sticking out against the muted greens and browns of the forest. My breath caught in my throat. Slowly, I stepped off the trail. Ferns brushed my calves as I made my way through the underbrush. I winced at the thought of how many ticks were probably latching onto my legs, but I continued. As I got closer, and my brain still couldn't parse what the white shape was. I just knew by the color, by the shape, it didn't belong in the woods. I took another step and froze. Next to the shape was a mess of tangled dark hair. It's a body. I began to scream. No one could hear me. I was a few miles from the road, from any houses, but I couldn't help it. I screamed and screamed and screamed until I was out of breath. The woman was lying face down in the underbrush. The ferns and long grasses had grown up around her, nearly engulfing her entire body. There was no smell. She'd probably been here a while. And the white I'd seen, it was the white of her t-shirt poking up through the foliage. Oh my God, what do I do? My hyperventilating breaths echoed in the empty clearing. Call the police. Right. I pulled out my phone, and I stopped. A few feet away from the body, laying in the tall grass, was a shoe. I took a step in its direction, and my entire body seized up as it came into full view. It's my shoe. It was identical. A pink Nike sneaker with white laces and a silver swoop logo. I swallowed, but my throat was dry. It's a popular sneaker. So this woman wore them. So what? Doesn't mean anything. Except I turned back to the body. The woman had long, dark, wavy hair. She was wearing black leggings and a white t-shirt like I often wore, like I was wearing right now. The ground spun underneath me. Just a coincidence. Just a coincidence. But I had to know. Slowly, I crouched down. I grabbed a stick near my foot and raised it to the woman's neck. Nearly gagging, I carefully lifted a lock of hair to expose the gray, desiccated skin of the woman's neck. No. A faded tattoo of a cross stared back at me. She has my tattoo. She has my freaking tattoo. I leapt back. My heel hit uneven ground, and I lost my balance. I fell, rear first, onto the damp dirt, staring at the corpse, at the tangled mess of hair. It can't. I forced myself up, tore my eyes away, and sprinted back through the ferns, back to the trail. I ran as fast as I could, my entire body burning. My lungs ached with each breath, but all I could think about was running, getting away from the body. When I turned the bend, I saw a man walking down the trail, earbuds in, getting exercise. I thought about telling him what I'd seen, but I couldn't stop the panic, couldn't stop running, putting as much distance between me and that thing as possible. But then, the strangest thing happened. In that last split second before I passed the man, I saw him smile. I glanced back. He had stopped in the middle of the trail and was looking over his shoulder at me, smiling. What the? I pumped my legs harder, glanced back again. No. He had turned around and was starting after me. Panic flooded me. I forced myself to run harder, but I could hear his steps behind me, pounding on the dirt trail, getting louder by the second. The body in the woods flashed through my head, face down, overgrown with foliage, sunken and gray. Forgotten. I glanced behind me. He was running at me, but not gaining on me as fast as I thought. I forced myself to push forward, around another bend, and then, through an opening in the trees, I saw it. The parking lot. And it wasn't empty. A family was getting ready to take a walk on the trail, and they could see us. "Help!" I screamed. "Help me!" A flurry of movement as the father pulled out his phone and called the police, while the mother ushered the kids back inside the car. I glanced back to see the man scurrying off into the underbrush, trying to hide. But it was too late for him. The police identified the man as a local who'd been accused of stalking women before. They were able to find him in the woods and bring him into custody. But they didn't find a body. I revisited the spot several weeks later, and while I was certain that was the exact spot, there was no body. Just the ferns swaying in the breeze, dappled by early summer sunlight. Well, this one certainly puts the macabre in the evening, doesn't it? I suppose it's a lucky superpower to have, but discovering your own corpse each time you avoid death is still pretty dark. You know, This story and our next one have some eerie similarities. Our next story is called Last Night I Got a reCAPTCHA. There was something horribly wrong with it. Let's have a listen. Have you ever seen a photo reCAPTCHA? Instead of a checkbox, it's a low-quality photo split into 16 square sections. It'll say something like, select all squares with street signs, and you have to click every square that contains a street sign. At 11 p.m. on Sunday night, I got one while downloading free stock images. It was a photo of a path through the forest. Select all squares with people. Okay, that was easy enough. In the center, there was a jogging woman in pink shorts. She took up a few of the middle squares, and I clicked them all. I pressed Verify. It didn't work. Select all squares with people, the message said again. I took off my glasses, placed them on the table, and squinted at the image. No, she wasn't the only person. Several feet off the trail, at the very edge of the image, I could see it. The edge of an arm clad in a black sweatshirt with a pink thumb poking out. I triumphantly clicked the 2 squares containing it. Verify. The image blinked as it refreshed. Then the same text popped up, as if to taunt me. Select all squares with people. I rubbed my eyes and stared at the image. The trees cast low-resolution, blocky shadows across the path. The woman's ponytail swung to the left, mid-motion. Patches of yellow sunlight dappled the surrounding forest. I studied some of the darker shadows far from the path, but none of them matched the silhouette of a person. I glanced to the edge of the image. No, the image had changed. The arm at the edge of the photo was now further in the frame, taking up 3 squares instead of 2. Bulky shoulders and dark jeans followed it. And the jogger was just slightly further down the path, as if she'd just taken a step. The touchpad was slick under my fingers. My heart pounded in my chest. Slowly, I dragged the cursor over the 3 squares and clicked them all. Verify. The image blinked. Select all squares with people. I leapt back from my computer. The image was different again. The man was further in the frame, taking up 5 squares. His hand was stretched out towards the jogger, just inches from her shoulder. And the jogger? She was turned towards him, eyes wide, mouth open in a silent scream. Click, click, click. I furiously clicked all the squares. Verify. Loading. Select all squares with people. The man's face was finally in frame. The hood of his sweatshirt was pulled tightly over his head. A translucent Halloween mask poked out from underneath, pressed against his features. His hand was latched onto her arm. She was screaming. Click, click, click. Verify. The image disappeared. I'd passed the reCAPTCHA. I reported what I'd seen to the police. At first, they thought I was crazy, but as I gave a detailed description of the images, they frantically took notes and asked me questions. The woman matched the description of a local woman, Kaylee Johnson. She went missing a week ago during an afternoon jog on the wooded Lakewood Trail. She was never found. A CAPTCHA that reveals a murder. Well, that's one way to pass the Turing test, I guess. I'd like to see ChatGPT try to figure this one out. Did you know that some of those CAPTCHA responses were used to digitize the archives of the New York Times in 2011? Depending on the source of those images, it's not entirely out of the realm of the possible that something frightening and evil could slip through. If you enjoyed these stories, please check out the author, Blair Daniels, in the links below. Blair has released an anthology featuring a handful of other incredible authors from the No Sleep subreddit called Terrors of the Forest. You can find a link to that as well. Please also like this video and subscribe for more stories like these. Be careful the next time you have to solve a CAPTCHA, and don't fall asleep.